Okay. You can make noise now. I'm just kidding. Welcome to another NetNarr studio hangout visit with my students at Kane, New Jersey. Hey, say hello from Kane, New Jersey.
Hello.
You guys just made GIFs. How do you feel? They're like, I can't believe I get a class where I get to make GIFs. And then so I want to introduce two really talented, special people who I just adore, and they kind of came on a whim when I just said, would you talk to my class? Both educators, and they'll tell you about themselves, but also who have a lot of experience thinking about animated GIFs and making them themselves. And we're just going to get a chance to hear their thoughts on that, ask them some questions, just a free-form conversation. So who should I don't know who should I ask first? Class, who should I introduce first?
One on the left.
The one on the left. I'm like reversing. I'll ask Michael to say hello first.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm on East Coast time with you. So I've known Alan since the early days of digital storytelling, this course called DS106, which is how I made my first animated GIFs. I'm now, at the time, I was a professor teaching in a media production program called Communications Technology, and primarily teaching video. And what was wonderful about GIFs at the time is it helped me get back to my roots of remix. I used to make a lot of, as an artist, in my early days, a lot of remix works that were primarily to the, printed matters, Xerox stuff, kind of like punky flyer type stuff. And so GIFs became this way of reconnecting with a lot of remix, and then I just kind of went full bore for about 3 years. And working with archives in particular, and museums, we held an event that was with the Transit Museum where we had a public call to work with their photography archive, making GIFs based on that, and have kind of been taking a small step back from GIF making in the past year, because I've been trying to teach myself how to program, which is exciting. But yeah, I've been a big fan for a while, and I have a lot of stuff I can show you that I've done and why and how I value it, and hope others do too.
Thank you. And you started in art. I mean, you're a real artist to begin with.
Yeah, I try.
You try. I've seen your stuff. That's very cool. And you teach at?
I teach at York College, which is one of the City University of New York schools. It's in Jamaica. It's a stone's throw from JFK Airport. It's a pretty, it's a very diverse school. There's, we're in Queens, which I'm sure people from Keene know. It's probably one of the most diverse points on the planet. In terms of the school literally has probably 60 different countries represented. It's pretty crazy, and it's a lot of fun because I get to see students, so many different students' points of view of culture, art. It's amazing.
You still do that kind of drop-in thing we had like those Fridays where kids could drop in and just make stuff?
Yeah, I haven't recently. We used to host what was called Meme Fridays, and it's where we just come up with something to do, and students would work together, and we just make stuff. It'd be nice to find a way to bring it back. That was a good one. Maybe we could do a special one with their class or something like that at some point. That'd be great.
Yeah. So you would like create a meme challenge of some sorts. Is that right?
Yeah, we would at the time. One example was we would do silly things like we would do. One day we were playing with rage faces, the old rage faces, the rage comic faces. And we had everybody we were doing photographs of people doing a rage face and then matching them up with the illustration and posting them at the face. So it was just playful with that. People just doing reaction GIFs, in real life reaction GIFs of people just doing all sorts of wacky poses and working on that. We decided to play with some of the tools of glitch art. We had everybody download it. We did together like a glitch art tutorial by playing with a hex editor, with digital images, and playing with hex editors. So all sorts of stuff like that.
I remember that one thing you did with the panoramas where
Oh yeah, that was a good one.
That was a wild idea, and maybe we should do that where you get like a person to do a panorama around you, so you're in the scene multiple times, right?
Yeah, it's a good hack of the panoramic camera. Like the idea is you're starting a panorama, then you pause it and have someone move, and they have to kind of back behind you, and then you move it again, and then they back behind you, and then you move it again, and it gives you the idea to like, it was like a clone yourself meme.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Thank you, and I can tell you, you can't do it by yourself. You need a friend.
No, it's so much more fun to do with others anyway, too.
Yeah. Well, cool.
That part of meme making is one of my more favorite parts of meme making, which involve like in real life stuff in collaboration with others and documenting and stuff like that.
Very cool. And now we're gonna like jump all the way across the country, out to the middle of the Pacific Ocean to meet Amy Burvall. Hey, Amy.
Hey, good to see you again. Hi, guys in New Jersey. I met Alan, I don't even know, like on the internet a long time ago when I was making stuff and he was making stuff, and somehow our paths crossed. And I really love what was just said about remix, because I think remix is the essence of creativity, and I think remix is more than something you do. It's a way of being. It's a way of thinking. It's a way of approaching life, and adding your own commentary on things. And I think GIFs are a perfect way to sort of recontextualize what already exists and use what's out there to give more meaning to something. So for me, I've been a teacher for like 25 years. My gosh, I can't believe it. And then I left the classroom and I'm doing consulting and whatnot. But basically, in my own private life, I've always been attracted to creating different remixes, different types of remixes, switching things up, taking appropriated things and giving new meaning to them. And one of the ways I've sort of been attracted to recently is, more visual thinking, how we think not only in still images, and I do a lot of sketching, but also in video, photography, and of course, animation. And I'm particularly excited about cinemagraphs. I don't know if you guys have talked about that so much, but that's really becoming really lucrative for the advertising world, is sort of capturing this moment in a still photograph that you can manipulate a video so that it becomes a still photograph, and you erase everything but one little bit. And I think that one little bit accentuates whatever mood is happening or whatever. So a lot of marketers have been using cinemagraphs and animated GIFs to be better at what they do. I mean, because it's appealing to us. I think for me, I like to always test the tool. I like to take things where maybe they aren't expected. So I work a lot with educators and kids, right? So recently, I've used GIFs in so many ways. Like I just did a conference where at the very end of the session, and bear in mind, this was the last session of the day, so everybody wanted to go to the bar, I had everybody do a GIF flexion. I said, just find a GIF on your phone and put it on your phone and like walk around like a cocktail party with this like GIF like projecting from your body. And we all looked at each other, and the GIF was supposed to be like what mood you're in right now, And of course, most of them were alcohol related because it was like 5 o'clock, but it was great. Yeah, no, but it was great to see as a reflection, as an affective data kind of a thing. But I think
putting the GIF out in the world, so it's on the screen, but it's with the person.
It's sort of like we're so used to posting them, but what about if we actually use them in a real face-to-face situation? We just kind of like walked around with them projecting from our bodies, and it was great. It was a great little mixer. But I've used, I think for me recently, because I've written a book and I have to promote it, I've used a lot of GIFs for that, because they're so attention getting. And I know that sounds weird, but I have fun making them, and they are. I've used them when I present and people are talking and stuff, and doing like makey stuff, and you have to bring them back to focus. I use animation in my slide, combined with music. So I make a lot of musical GIFs, and which is weird because like most GIFs are silent, but this one I make musical ones, and they kind of bring back the fold to the table. So just experimenting with all kinds of ways to use them in maybe different ways. I put a question out there I think people should think about is, we use GIFs a lot for reaction. I think most people are using them to, you know, post a reaction, like what their mood is or how they reacted to a comment. But what about for proactive work, you know, artistic work, like intentional telling the story kind of work?
And that's
my
what
question.
And that's been my question too, and kind of the theme what we're doing. I do want to say, for you might want to show off your ring because it's pretty Amy Burvall-ish. What is that?
It opens up and there's eyeshadow in it, you know.
I don't know anything about eyeshadow, but we did introduce cinemagraphs. I'm kind of curious maybe to hear from both. I mean, they were really intriguing for a time period. Then it just seemed like everybody was doing them, and then all I think is just like the one where the model's sitting on the patio and her hair is going. I did find a really interesting one I showed the class last week, and it's a still shot, and there's a guy way up on a swing and he's frozen, but there's an empty swing next to him that's kind of moving, and it was kind of disturbing.
I think they're very disturbing but poetic, and that's where I think they're important, because I think they can be little poems in themselves and you can read into them. And I think for marketing, I think advertisers are using them to highlight a thing. But what I did when that app first came out, I asked my students, oh my God, this thing is so cool, but like, how can we make it relevant in our class? Like, how can we use it? And one of the students came up with this idea of, we had been studying emotion as a way of knowing in theory of knowledge class. And he's like, we should make cinemagraphs based on a certain emotion, where whatever we highlight is going to accentuate that particular emotion. And that's kind of what we explored with that.
Cool. I'll ask both of you, but like, I mean, a real basic question. I mean, and it's kind of just top of that. Like, what is it about the GIF? I mean, what is it that works or makes it interesting or effective as either an artist and or a communicator?
Well, one thing that's great about it is it works. I think that's one of the things that's amazing. It's like, you look at the history of it as a technology, like it's one of the original internet web browsing image formats. And, you know, I mean, you folks that grew up with YouTube, like GIFs were pre-video. Video was an impossibility to deal with, right? And so GIFs were able to carve out this space of how do we get video in my comment thread, right? On my forum. How do we get video in my social media or now? But how do I can't make video part of my communication in the earlier days of the internet, and the GIF was the way to do that. You would take a slice of video and then use this ridiculous technology, which is crazy and efficient too, which is hilarious. And so that's what made it sustain, I think. And then it was recaptured. And now I think what I adore is how, you know, if you take the cinemagraphs, I have one thing that I want to screen share. I remember first finding cinemagraphs and being like Alan and kind of not liking the, it's another person by a coffee shop with the cab going by in the reflection, and it's beautiful, but there was nothing whimsical about it. But then there were these couple, which was people that were finding ways in one of the, I think it was Cinemagram, where it allowed you to do the masking. And so there were this kind of much more whimsical people trying to figure out what can we do with this. And this one was really a favorite of mine too, like walking into the void. And then finally this one which is similar to the disturbing, like the swing still going up, stuck in the air. And I like this kind of playfulness that people were experimenting rather than this perfect moment captured with the snow or the raindrops falling. So that's what I find probably one of the sustaining parts of it. How do you turn off? Did I turn it?
So yeah, it makes me like, I mean, one of the questions is like, obviously you want to know, like, where did that idea come from? Like, what did they see looking at that pier? Yeah.
Right. So that's what I kind of still appreciate about it, is this. Go back to the window. Oh, there I am. So yeah, that people have found all these different ways, and I spent a bunch of time on Reddit, and there's like a subculture for like 50, 60 different types of GIFs. Like right now, GIF tournament is going on right now, and I've participated in GIF tournament, and I always.
What is it? What is it?
So GIF tournament is like a tournament hosted by this group, primarily that's part of this subreddit that's high quality GIFs, and so it's people that have a lot of like motion graphics experience basically, and it's basically a competition for joke writing with GIFs, and so people are just taking, and a lot of them are insider jokes of the community, and so what happens is you have it's an open call, and anybody can submit a seed round GIF, and if you're one of the top 64, then you're put in a bracket, and then each week for this, I think it's 5 rounds, there's a theme that everybody has to follow, and so the theme will be like real life doodles, and they'll be known like GIF community themes, or it'll be like same source, so everybody has to make a GIF for the competition based on a particular movie. And so they're finding ways to just riff on one another and build this community around like, oh, I love that, or I love this, and try to get each other to laugh, but also just show off what they've learned and how they can participate. And then there's like a WWE style like digital golden belt if you win.
An animated belt?
And it's going on right now. So if you Google GIF tournament, you can see it's in progress, and you can see all the older versions of it. So
yeah,
people that play with it that way too.
What makes a GIF artistic, Amy?
Well, I actually think it boils down to a couple of things that have been going on in the art world for a long time. One is minimalism, kind of abstraction, like Picasso famously did with his like bull exercise, but getting down to something, the essence of something, and then repetition, like Andy Warhol, kind of like there's something about that loop, that repetition of something that we can, I don't know, make the mundane kind of more special, or maybe take away the specialness of art. I'm not sure, but there's something about repetition, right? And then I think with GIFs in particular, because they're so emotionally charged, we use them to express emotion and react with emotion, to capture a moment in time from this crazy, hectic world of just like craziness. I think those 3 things, the abstraction, the repetition, and the emotion, make it the most artistic for me. And I think even beyond like a photograph, I love photography, but there's something about, bringing life to that image and having this snippet in time. It's almost like you're voyeur, it's like a little bit voyeuristic, which I think appeals to a lot of us.
What's the longest you've ever watched a GIF for?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, that's really, wow. That's, yeah, no, I go back to, I recently asked people what their go-to GIF was, like on Facebook, and it was really interesting to see, based on my friends' personalities, what their favorite GIF was. Ask your friends that. That's a really good question, because it's the one that we watch over and over and that we want to use over and over, and sometimes there are certain moods, sometimes it's based on a celebrity or a famous like nostalgic moment in their life. Maybe it's an 80s TV show or something, but it's really an insight to people if you ask what their favorite GIF.
Then you have to tell us what yours is then.
No, I have no favorite. This is why I have no tattoos. I can't commit. I can't commit. No, I have some I tend to like the ones from old movies more than the more modern ones that are kind of more popular and memeified. I like the more obscure ones, but that's why I make my own. And I like to draw my own. So most people, when they make a GIF, they take appropriated sources, like a film or whatever. But I like to actually draw stills and make it's more like mini stop motions, but it becomes a GIF.
Do you have a go-to GIF, Michael?
Definitely not, like, I'm not a reaction GIF person generally. So me, it's one of my go-tos. What I spent a lot of time was like I think it for a period of time, it definitely affected how I watched media. Like you're just looking for that thing that you think is repackageable in a fun way. And that's where like Don't Turn That Dial came out. I'll show one other one, which was all these GIFs that remember shoving into TVs, and I was kind of trying to make that one.
I love that, by the way. I spent a lot of time on your Tumblr looking at that.
Yeah, so this one was like basically remembering TV from an era and how I watched it in these old like ugly TVs, and I would go through times and what was it? I would kind of watch stuff like, let's see, it's loading.
Welcome back, Cotter.
Yeah. And so for a while, it'd be like, oh, it's a bunch of SNL, or it's a bunch of music videos, and these are what's so funny is you forget how for people our age, we were still watching tube TVs, and the quality of the image was horrific in a lot of ways. But to find these little things like like Eric Estrada, just like his little shimmy here, and it just keeps going, right? And that's enjoyable. And just so that's how I would consume old TV, is I'd be watching old TV just to find like, oh, that'll be great to loop. And and that's kind of a funny way, and that's ultimately, I think, is also one of the more interesting things of gift making is it allows study of images in a way that's different. Like, so there's the obvious recontextualization, right? So the reaction GIF is literally like taking a moment from a film that has some sort of expression or meaning that had context. And that's the thing people forget. It's like this thing had context. It was directed and acted and written in a particular way for a particular thing. And then someone took that and used it to re-represent it, their own emotions. That's so cool. And so that's what I think so much of gift making is ultimately about, is making new context for these pieces of media that have new value. And so whether it's archives, and so you have all these old like what is the illuminated text, like the medieval written and illustrated Bibles, and like those make some of the funniest images, like the rocket cat that was discovered. There was a cat that was being used. It was a medieval military manual, and they were like imagining how they would strap a firebomb on a cat, and it would run into a village and go into a hayloft and cause it to catch fire. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's the 16th century Nyan rocket cat.
I think that's an important point to make, this connection between the past and now. Like when I go to museums, I often take pictures of the art and then I draw over them and make new captions or whatever. But what you're talking about, like taking old art, classic art, and giving it a modern meaning.
It probably was when I was looking at all those TVs of like I don't know. There's something special about getting that loop so it's perfect. Like, doesn't that takes a lot? Like I rarely get a really perfect loop.
Yeah,
like where you can't see the beginning and the end.
Right. That's the cinematographic effect, right? Isn't it? Even if it's when I first encountered GIFs, that's what I thought they were for. It's like, oh, it has to be this perfect loop where it's seamless, right? And that was a challenge to itself, to try to find that and make that this moment that was endless. But then I understood how much fun it was to just play with it as like, oh, it starts and stops, but it's because it has its own little story, and then you can recycle it immediately and enjoy that story again, rather than have the moment be that self-contained perfection be the moment.
Almost like a beat to it, like because it goes ka-ching, ka-ching.
Yeah. There was that. What is that? That's another subreddit where people would take GIFs and apply like YouTube videos, and they would try to effectively match the beats of a music video to a GIF and try to make synchronicity happen. And sometimes it would be accidental, but sometimes it would work. Reddit's really fun for finding all these different kind of unique But
How many Kane?
What's that?
Okay, how many Kane students spend time in Reddit? Anybody? Yeah, a few. There were they always tease me because my references are usually about 3 or 4 years out of date. I showed them today. I just wanted to talk about like subtractive, like different forms of creation. So I showed them a couple of the Garfield without Garfield. It was just bizarre, and so I want to think about like what if you took a GIF and what if you took like Kermit out or something, or I don't know if that really works the same, but
the idea. Simpson disappearing into the bushes. He backs into the bushes meme. And they replaced Homer with all these different things, and like it was just it was really great. It was just a simple reaction GIF, but then it was remixed heavily, and that's where I think a lot of interesting value happens with memes. It's like it has its initial value, but then it's repurposed into new value by different points of view and context. And definitely Homer backing into bushes is one. If you Google that one, you'll find it.
I think they know it. They seem to know it. I mean, go ahead.
Oh, I just think when Michael mentioned value, I think that's like important to know too. Like we value whimsy and fun and entertainment, but in addition to that, GIFs have become integral part of marketing. They can make political statements big time. And then I use them in my education work, kind of thing. So I think it's worth looking at the usefulness of GIFs aside from entertainment.
Yeah.
Just a thought. And by the way, sorry, have you gone to the Museum of Moving Image in New York? In Brooklyn? It's in Brooklyn. No, it's not in Brooklyn. It's in Queens.
It's in Queens, yeah.
And they have that new GIF elevator kind of thing exhibit. Pretty cool.
They've had a couple GIF exhibits that I have seen. And GIF shows are interesting too. Like I've seen a couple of those too. And the Transit Museum show was definitely very cool because we got all these people to work on these photographs from the archives of the Transit Museum, and then we were able to project them within various spaces within the museum one night. That was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
That was pretty compelling. So I mean that's what I just appreciate museums that recognize like the value of connecting with digital cultures with their artifacts, because it's always bugged me in a funny way, and I don't know how much you work with museum archives, but if you work with their official like photo archives, there are certain types of libraries like the New York Public Library where they make like full resolution artifacts available, but then there's other libraries or museums that hold on to that full resolution version of the image. Like that means they're giving away the copyright value of the image if they give you the full resolution asset, which is kind of weird to me. I get it.
Yeah.
They, I was recently at the Museum of Modern Art, and I asked one of their librarians about this, and they're like, they weren't really. Her reaction was like, well, we did that for a while, but then we saw things being manufactured in China with those images on them. Okay. Is that affecting your market? Like, what the
more people know about art.
And so
yeah,
that's why I appreciate the museums. They're like, yeah, these assets that so much of them are all out of copyright. These are the public's assets, and we should make them as available and usable in as many different ways as possible. I love those that are willing to do stuff like that. The New York Public Library is pretty darn good about it.
I feel really strongly about this issue about rethinking copyright, and one of the things I've been drawn to is something called the Gutenberg parentheses theory. It's out of the University of Southern Denmark, but it says that the period from the printing press to the internet is like just a blip in history, but we always think it's the norm. But really the time before that and the time now is a time of remix, is a time of oral and visual culture. And things are, you know, things back, even in Shakespeare's time, were all remixable, and it wasn't so intense and things weren't solidified, you know. So I think that's important to embrace, like that's a new culture, you know, or we're going back to the old culture, basically.
Right. Where you're not just so focused on making money off of the actual physical copies of works.
So
sells a lot of that, which is cool.
Yeah, there was a video I came across. I can't remember if I sent it to my students. There was it was like an interview with someone like in a museum, and they were selling GIFs as art, and they were trying to like figure out like how do you sell a piece of like looping animation as art, and I don't know if she really made the case for it, but
I think they have sold. I do know that. One of my favorite artists was this guy, Scorpion Dagger, and he did this. Here, I can show you one more share.
Scorpion Dagger.
That's the best name ever. Like,
I know, it's like the best handle ever. He's like such a millennial. He's awesome.
I don't know. I have to. My students tell me I have to look up drill now.
The Scorpion Dagger was basically really into taking all these Renaissance characters primarily, and really just like, as he said, make them look like hosers. And one of these GIFs he actually did, I funded. Well, a way he made money off them is he took one of these special books that it wasn't where it was connected to an app, and you could hold your phone over the app, and you would animate the images in the book, so it would recognize the image in the book, so the book would appear animated, which was pretty cool.
Yeah. Wow.
And I helped fund it because it was like a Kickstarter. And one of the prizes, one of the things that rewards was he would make a GIF with you in it, and I had him make a GIF with myself and with some friends from the CUNY Academic Commons. So I can't find it right now, but there's a GIF, custom GIF with our head, and my friends were like, "Is this a reward or a punishment?" Permanently affixed to this GIF of where everybody's made to look like really hosiery. So I mean, this is another type of art that I really appreciate.
It's very Monty Python in a way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it does.
Right, Terry Gilliam.
Yeah, Terry Gilliam. And we use Terry Gilliam in some of our classes. He has a really, really wonderful video about his process of making those animations. And he would talk about like doing all these cutouts from these big tabloid magazines. And he'd say, well, you know, making someone walk with legs was way too complicated. So what do? We just took a wheel and put it for their legs, so that we could just roll the character instead. Because that's a lot easier than trying to make someone look like they're walking, you know. So some of it was very practical. Or he would cut out the mouth, and then so he would have a cutout from a person's jaw, and then he would just hold it and puppet it so that for when they were talking, so they could match dialogue, you know. And so it was really practical stuff.
That was the old blabberize.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to, any of you guys in the classroom, you've been listening, do you guys have any questions for our GIF artists? Or do our GIF artists have any like artistic advice for my budding students?
Oh, I do. I have one. One of the things I like to do I would encourage to do is play with phone apps that allow you to sequence images. And I can share it with Alan. There's a site, I have a colleague and we made this collection of phone apps that allow you to make it. So there's this taking a piece of video and then just looping it. But I encourage you to just like really use these tools that manipulate images and video, and then make loops out of that, and then remix it again, and then put it through more processes. And so that it's a lot of fun, because there'll be all these wacky kind of filters, but it's also built from, you know, it has like these glitch aesthetics attached to it and all sorts of other stuff. And I'll share with Alan this set of links to, like, these are my top 10 favorite like iOS apps for doing remix and turning things into GIFs. That's a lot of fun, because then you can just be on your phone and you're just like manipulating. You're like, what are you doing? Oh, I'm not on social media. I'm manipulating a half a dozen images and trying to make something. And you're just kind of enthralled with like, wow, that's wacky. And it's compelling because you're starting to use your own works, whether it's your own photographs or your own video, but you're not just doing the simple loop thing. You're really trying to try out new things and see what that does.
I just had that experience I was in San Francisco eating and at the airport, and across from me was this amazing tattoo artist, and he was drawing in his little sketchbook, and we got to talking, and he saw me making a GIF with my sketches, and he's like, "What's that?" And so basically, I took a series of like 5 pictures of him and showed how he could show his process. And then make a GIF on my phone, you know, with image play or whatever. And he was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm writing that down," you know. He's so excited.
Yeah.
So you can share that on social media.
The stop motion thing is a really fun place to start. Like, just, you know, taking a sequence of 20 stills and then looping them, you know. I mean, Vine's dead, so we can't do that anymore. Vine was so much fun.
I know.
At least they didn't yank them off the internet. They left them there. Yeah, a question from the room? Do you guys have any apps that you use on your phones to whip together animations and stuff like that?
No, not for animation. I didn't know that they had apps like that for the phone. I thought that was more something you would do on the computer. So that was kind of interesting.
Oh yeah, it's remarkable what you can pull off on your phone. Yeah, there's so many great things.
I've made a challenge this year to do every piece of creative work on my phone. So I do all stop motion animation, all original drawing, all movie making, whatever. And it's, I think I've linked in Alan's resources like how to do it, but I used like a smash of about 4 apps if I want to add music. But it's quick and dirty. Like I can do a cute little GIF that's completely original drawing plus animation in like 5 minutes.
You guys, Amy's volume of artistic output is full bore.
No, it's more like obsessive. It's more like I need a therapist. But
it's a compliment. It's a compliment. So,
thank you, Alan.
Anything? Do you guys have any questions there for these artist people?
You want to see some more?
Besides apps, what else do you use to make GIFs? Besides applications?
How do you create your GIFs?
Besides on the phone?
Or in general?
Like in general, besides applications, like you need to use apps to make GIFs, right? Like that's the only way.
Well, you got to pick a digital tool one way or another.
Right, okay.
You know, I think definitely if you want to do more complex things, you're going to graduate tools like Photoshop and even complex motion graphics after effects. But you don't have to do stuff like that. But there are, you know, you'd be surprised how easy, one of the things that's kind of enjoyable is how you can do things like, you know, where one of the things fun is motion tracking, right? Like where you have characters doing certain things and you track their heads. And have you ever noticed how you see like a piece of text that's moving with a person's head in a GIF or something like that? And what they'll do is they'll just pick like, oh, it's my nose. There's this bright spot on my nose. And there's a tool where you just put a crosshair there and it just tracks it for like the 30 or 40 frames. And then you can have the text go with it, you know, and stuff like that's really cool. But then you can do funny things. Like I like to do it. I was taking for a little while, I was playing with movie scenes and replacing with emoji heads.
I love that.
And so, you know, you start to look at the rules of what people were doing and then you kind of start to muck with them, right? And that's a lot of fun. You know, and it's funny, but it's also fun. And, you know, this one, probably one of my favorites, if you know Harry Met about. So
That changes the whole scene.
yeah.
It's better. No.
It is better.
So-
There's also those real simple, like the wiggle ones that are just two images that just kind of go back and forth because
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's wiggle GIFs, like playing with another simple one is definitely playing with like those dual, what were the stereoscopic images where you're meant to look through the video.
Yeah.
And just layering those two on top of one another and alternating, you get the 3D effect just by seeing the oscillation between the two images very quickly. And I think, the New York Public Library has a generator for that. So you can look through their collection of stereoscopic image pairs, and they have a digital tool just to layer them together and see what the results are.
That's good.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Lynn.
Oh, I need to publish some more daily digital alchemies. And we're going to wrap up with the students. They're itching to go because they've been in class for a couple hours. But
right.
say so. Give your closing, Amy.
Oh no, I was just, when he was talking about the motion capture thing, there's a motion portrait app that I use to make I do a lot of analog drawing as well, and I was doing a series of pastels, and I just kind of like did the motion capture on the faces, and it made it come to life really, and these like analog images. So that was kind of cool.
Cool. Well, I really want to thank you guys for coming in. We're going to get Amy made a long list of resources, and I have to add a few more, and we'll get Michael's apps, and I should put his Tumblr in there because that's where the interesting stuff is.
Yeah.
That's like a whole night. That's like a whole night of just entertainment right there. Because Michael's Tumblr.
Cool. I'm going to stop the broadcast, but really, thanks a lot. I so appreciate you guys coming in to visit my students.
Thank you.
Nice meeting you. Send us a